Hello, and welcome everyone to today's Fairygodboss live webinar. We're so excited to have you all join us today, and we're going to give folks a few seconds to connect. But while we're waiting, we'd love to know where everyone is tuning in from today. You'll see on the right side of your screen, there's a chat bot. So if you feel comfortable doing so, please send a message in the chat saying hello and tell us where you're joining from. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Diamond McClintock, talent brand lead at Squarespace. And before we get started, I have a few quick announcements. The session will be recorded and shared via email with all who have registered. And then also during the discussion, we would love to hear from you. So we hope that you'll use the stage chat on the right side of your screen, send messages, comments, and questions to the panelists and to one another. Now I'm excited to kick off today's event. It's called Women Leaders Unlocking Possibility Through Innovative Programs, sponsored by Squarespace. For those who don't know, Fairygodboss is the largest career community for women. Millions of women visit Fairygodboss for career connections, jobs, community advice, hard to find intel about how companies treat women, and virtual events like this one. I'm thrilled to be joined today by three of my colleagues, Danielle, Hannah, and Sarah. If each of you could just quickly take a minute and introduce yourselves, please. We'd love to hear what's going on in your life, both professionally and personally, and what you do in your role today at Squarespace. So Danielle, if we could start with you.
Yes, hi everyone. Lovely to see everyone popping up in the chat all across the states. That's brilliant to see. I am Danielle. I'm Squarespace's European Marketing Director. I have been with the company for 3 years now. My 3-year anniversary is actually this week, so that's very exciting. My past experiences include spearheading marketing for brands like Net-a-Porter, Camden Market, and Bumble, and now been at Squarespace for 3 years. I'm originally from the States, but I'm based in London. I was actually Squarespace's first marketing hire outside of New York and the States, and really kickstarted our international expansion and growth across Europe. And then in terms of my day-to-day activities, I essentially head up all of the brand marketing strategy for our priority markets across Europe, and have a team on the ground here in London and then also in Amsterdam as well.
Awesome, thank you. Hannah?
Hi, everybody. My name is Hannah Chase. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I lead up our leadership and learning team, which is just what we call our learning and development team here at Squarespace. I've been with the company for a little over 5 years, and I am based out of New York. So I'm dialing in from New York City today, where it's been like really gross and rainy for quite some time, but we just got sun yesterday, so everyone's in a really good mood. So that's personally what's going on.
I agree. And Sarah, last but not least, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself for us.
Sure. Hi, I'm Sarah. I've been at Squarespace for 2 years, just over 2 years, and I help lead our Circle team, which is our pro user community. So people who are building websites for businesses, artists, other people. And I am currently in New Jersey traveling with my family. I have 2 kids and a husband, and we're traveling, though I'm typically based in Florida. So I'm a past New Yorker, transplanted to Florida, visiting New Jersey right now, and excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all. Really excited about our discussion today about innovative programs at Squarespace. And I hope that what we all discussed today will be helpful to everyone, even our panelists and myself. So really excited about the discussion. So for those who are just tuning in, I would like to remind everyone that we will be answering questions that come in directly from you as well. So please feel free to submit your questions in the chat on the right of your screen, and we'll do our very best to respond to as many as we can. So let's get into it. You're here because you have either led an innovative initiative or program, or you found innovative solutions to problems. So before we get into some of the programs and initiatives that you're leading, please tell us how having an innovative mindset has affected your career and your peers at work. Hannah, if you can start.
Sure. So anyone who knows me is probably really sick of hearing about this, but hopefully I've got some like new friends and strangers on the call. My background outside of learning and development, which I've been in my whole career, is also I teach and perform improv, which I've been doing for like 20 years. And I think I attribute a lot of my innovative approach to having a pretty like a mindset that has been very much developed by sort of improv philosophy and sentimentality, which is or sentiment, which is very much collaboration. It's very collaborative, right? It's improv is very much about building an idea with someone else and seeing value in ideas from disparate sources and disparate people and different perspectives. And so I think I bring that approach to a lot of the work that I do in my day job. It's also very much about like trying things and taking risks and understanding that you can't get something totally right on your first try or ever. Like there's never really perfect. And so I think I bring a lot of that to my work at Squarespace. Very collaborative approach, very comfortable like trying things and taking risks, and very comfortable learning from mistakes and learning from things that don't always go perfectly and looking for opportunities to continue to iterate and build. I'm very much not a like, well, we've already done it once, so it's great. We'll just repeat that over and over. Like I constantly want to iterate and make things better. So I attribute a lot of that to having an improv background, but I think it's allowed our programs to continue to grow and do some cool stuff that if we were thinking more about playing it safe, we might not do.
Exactly. Thank you. And Sarah, how about you? How has having an innovative mindset supported you in your career?
Yeah, so similar to Hannah, my degree is in design, though I'm not a designer professionally today. I still, do that kind of on the side. But I think that background has given me a little bit more creativity than, I might have if I had just gone to business school, for example. Though not to say business graduates aren't creative, but, thinking creatively, trying new things, has led me to kind of where I'm at now. Before Squarespace, I was at a company called TaskRabbit, and that was my intro to tech. And I kind of found my way there in a really kind of random way. I started there by doing orientations or kind of presentations, and I started there part time, and then that led me to full time work there. And I realized that I had experience running a community, but I didn't have that language and I didn't know what that really meant until I had a couple of jobs in community and operations. And I realized that I actually did have a lot of experience there. So sometimes I think taking on interesting things that you don't know exactly where they lead can be really beneficial. So that's how I found my way here. And now I've been working in tech for it's over 7 years. So I've learned a lot, and but always having that kind of creative foundation has really been helpful to me.
Thank you. And Danielle, last but not least, any thoughts on this innovative mindset and how it's played out in the year so far?
Yeah, of course. Building off of what Sarah said, I think my career has taken an interesting path. I think most marketers stay within one industry throughout their whole career. That's usually how it usually works. But I have hopped industries and verticals across my full career. So I started in fashion. I went into hospitality and F&B, and then I went into lifestyle, and then now into tech. And I think being able to work with completely different types of people within those realms, completely different topics, completely different problems that each of those industries bring at you, I think have really allowed me to have a different type of perspective, and been able to really use those experiences as building blocks throughout the way. I've also always intentionally gone to startups or startup-like mentality companies, where you have to be very lean on the ground, lean on the team with the team. You have to be speedy, you have to be agile, you have to pivot when you need to. So being able to build that muscle throughout my career has been really important for me, and I've now used that to the point where I think that innovation is ingrained within me now and is becoming habitual, and that creative thinking is more fluid, just based off of practice across the years.
Thank you. And I know that I'm not a panelist, but I'll quickly chime in and, give my POV too. I'm talent brand lead currently, but this is my first ever role in talent brand and my first ever role outside of recruiting. And I think having that innovative mindset allowed me to pivot into something more creative and being into talent brand rather than that of recruiting, because I was leveraging my downtime during recruiting to what are innovative and new ways that I can entice people to want to come and join my organization as a recruiter. And so I appreciate that I was always given opportunities in the organizations I was in to have innovative thought processes to, inevitably come into the role that I am right now. So thank you all. So let's now talk about the programs and the initiatives that you're currently leading. Sarah, we'll start with you. What inspired you or Squarespace to create this program? And what are you most proud of about the program or initiative?
Yeah, so I can't take credit for creating the program. It was started back in 2016 before my time here. But what led me to working with the Circle program is I was working, like I said, for TaskRabbit, which is a marketplace, and Squarespace also has a marketplace. So we have a marketplace where you can hire a Circle member to help with your project. So that's how I found my way to this team, and then eventually came into a role that was a little bit more broad, which focused on running the whole Circle program, not just the marketplace side. So that's how I found myself here. And I think what's really cool about the Circle program is that it is a subset of Squarespace's customer, the type of customer who wants to have their website built for them. And we're supporting small businesses who are supporting small businesses. So it's kind of like this cool layer of supporting entrepreneurs. And I have entrepreneurs in my family. I've helped start businesses. My husband currently runs a bagel shop in Florida, and I'm like the cheerleader on the side. So helping small businesses is really motivating to me. And I love that I can do that every day. And I also love that I meet people in our community, at events and things, and they tell me what they love is they love supporting other small businesses. So I love the mission. And I think what's really interesting about Circle and Innovative is that it was something that was already kind of happening without a community management team. It was sort of happening naturally. People were using the product to build websites for other people. And I think the people who founded Circle realized that there was an opportunity there, and then just kind of grew the program so that those people could be supported. And so now we do all kinds of things like events and in-person conferences and content for that community. But all that community was really I guess kind of born naturally, and we are now just fostering it.
Thank you. Hannah, can you speak to the programs and initiatives that you lead here at Squarespace?
Yeah, sure. So my team does a lot, but I think one of the maybe more innovative or like one of the cooler programs that we run, we have a number of cohort-based leadership development programs. We call them the Leadership Catalyst and the Leadership Accelerator. And these are multi-month programs to develop leaders and emerging leaders at Squarespace. And I think they are some of my favorite things that I get to work on. It's not just me, I have a team, so I also can't take credit for these. But they're exciting programs because we essentially get to turn our mission as a company, which is, empowering our customers and setting our customers up to succeed, and helping them get their business off the ground or their brand off the ground. We get to do that for our employees. And so again, it's sort of connecting to what Sarah was saying. It's a very it's very motivating to get a chance to provide resources and infrastructure and programming to leaders at the company to help them be more happy, be more connected to the broader company, be better at their roles, develop key skills. So we have a few different programs that we run simultaneously for various cohorts at the company. I would say we really try to have those programs be to leverage a lot of different ways that people can learn and grow. So it's not just, oh, you are in this program and then you take a workshop once a week for a certain period of time. There are workshops, but there's project work, there's coaching, there's mentorship. There's a lot of cross-functional collaboration on these learning teams throughout the program. So we've tried our best to tap into a lot of different ways to help support these employees. And I think we're constantly, again, like iterating on how to do that. But those are some of the programs that my team oversees.
Thank you. And can you just quickly elaborate, like, are all the programs, the learning and development programs at Squarespace offered for, let's say, is it volunteer based? Is it dependent on level? Is there a variety based on the program?
Yeah, there's a variety based on the program. So we have a lot that is available company-wide to anybody who wants to participate. But then we also do target specific populations, and that may be by level, that may be by role, right? Like we have manager development programs specifically for managers, and we have multiple pieces of that for different managers, for managers of managers. And then these programs that I was just referencing are people are nominated to participate. And we run one once a year, we run the other one twice a year. So I would say we have a lot of different stuff going on our team, plenty that is available company-wide, but I think we've been able to support specific populations as well in a very targeted and tailored way. And I think that's helped sort of round out the portfolio of what we offer.
Thank you. And Danielle, I would love if you could speak to, given your role as marketing director, what are some of the key considerations when designing programs within your area of the business to ensure that they're effectively promoting diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging? How do these programs align with Squarespace's overall mission and values as well?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Diamond. I'm something I feel really passionate about. I fundamentally believe that no matter what role or department you're in, that there is always a way that you can impact the world around you. And it goes back to being innovative and having that creative thinking of always keeping that top of mind and figuring out how you can input that into your role. I of course work within marketing, and I've worked across loads of industries, and I've always been able to somehow figure out a way to utilize marketing investment in a way that supports diversity and inclusion throughout all of it. I think, for example, my team and everything they do, they start there. They start at the core. Okay, how can we create impact in an inclusive way? How can we support our customers, empower our customers, but in an inclusive way? And they start by looking at different partners that we can work with, different customers, different communities, and then they build their programs from that. So I think it's all about really starting there and then building around it, as opposed to thinking it as a last thought.
Thank you. Hannah, any thoughts on that key considerations when designing these programs?
The key consideration of like diversity and inclusion in these programs, was that the question? I got distracted looking at the starred question as well, which was for me. Yeah. So I think for the programs that my team runs, we have a diversity and inclusion lens that we apply to pretty much everything that we do. We have core leadership capabilities at Squarespace. We have 11 leadership capabilities, and we design our programs to align to those. And one of our leadership capabilities is lead inclusively. And so that works its way into everything that we build. Just to highlight like one element aside from, for these cohort-based program, which I was mentioning earlier, we try to build diverse cohorts for those programs. We really, really feel that there is value in bringing people together who bring different backgrounds, different perspectives in a lot of different ways, and also represent different parts of the company. So there's a real sort of collaborative component to them. And that collaboration feeds not just into like who participates in the programs, but there's a lot of in the accelerator in particular. We have a learning team component of it, which is we sort of borrow from. I worked in a business school before I worked at Squarespace, so we sort of borrow from the business school model of learning teams, where we put people in really intentionally cross-functional teams with different backgrounds and different skills that they can bring, and they work on a project over the course of the program that they present to leadership at the end. And I think we can really see the benefit of having multiple perspectives in those projects, and so that's one place we get to see it. I'm also happy to answer the question, but I don't want to like derail us. But I saw a question came in directed at me. Should I answer it now?
We'll get to that. I just
okay. We'll get to it later.
Sarah,
Right?
Yes, thank you. I would love, Sarah, to hear your perspective on how you're effectively promoting, diversity, equity, inclusion, especially within your program, Circle Day and the Circle program, given that is an access for all of our customers, and customers can be look and be from any and everywhere. So would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So one thing that was, I don't know why this was surprising, but one thing that was surprising to me when I started managing this community of professional web designers is how much of our community is made up of women and people of color and people from all over the world. It's not just people in the US. We have people from I guess I should know how many countries off the top of my head, but a lot of different countries. And I think it makes it really special, and it allows us to make sure that when we design things like our Community Leaders Program, which is a program that we invite people to join in, and they help give product feedback. They help give us feedback on our communications. They give us suggestions, and then we run things by them. So they're kind of a core group of users who give the company a lot of input, and that's run by our Circle team. So when we design a program like that, we want to make sure that we're representing the community at large. So we make sure we have a mix of genders, a mix of ethnicities and races, and people from other countries as well, so that we're not designing something that is, purely focused on the US. So we do work to make sure we have diversity in that program. And then, like you said, Diamond, we run a conference called Circle Day. This year it was 2 days of, talks and webinars. It was online and in person, so that, if you're not in New York, you can still attend and learn. And when we're picking speakers, we make sure that our speakers are diverse and come from a wide range of backgrounds. Because, when I meet Circle members, some of them are people who wanted flexibility because they're moms, or people who wanted flexibility to travel, or, people who just didn't want to work a regular corporate job, so they started doing their own thing. So making sure that those programs reflect our community is super important to us. And we're lucky we do have a really, a community of tens of thousands of people that we can pull from. And for our Circle Day, we do actually source most of the speakers from the community. So I think that's what's really beautiful about that event, is that it's community members teaching other community members, and then they create these connections that they bring into their work even beyond the event.
Thank you. And while we're already discussing Circle program, would love to start with you for the next question, which is, what are some of the challenges or obstacles that you've faced with, building out these programs, and how have you been able to overcome them?
Yeah, so I think with any community that's heavily invested in a product or a service, I think it can be tough to balance the openness of receiving suggestions and requests, and they're so invested in the company because they're building their businesses off of our Squarespace product. So they should be invested because they're relying on our product to build sites for other people. So of course they have the most amazing suggestions and feedback, and they're building hundreds of sites perhaps a year versus the average customer who may do a few or one even. So I think balancing the wants and the needs of a professional community it can be tough with the company strategy. And I think something we always try to do is be as transparent as possible of, here's where the product is headed, here are the features that are launching. We do a lot of different programs to give our community kind of early access to some of the features that are launching. We do betas, we do feedback opportunities. So just being really transparent and also being transparent when something isn't going to be worked on for a while, so that people can adapt and find ways to do what they need to do if it's not available immediately in our product. So we, I think, have made a lot of progress as a team, increasing transparency into the Squarespace product. And it'll be something we continue to do because it's kind of one of the number one asks from our community.
Thank you. I love that. I think we can all take away in our roles, like, how do you overcome obstacles, provide clarity, and manage expectations. Danielle, I would love to hear from you about this topic, given the market that you're overseeing from a marketing perspective is so vast and large. What are the obstacles that you often face with your programs, and how have you been able to overcome them?
Yeah, for sure. There's a new program or a new problem obstacle every week. So very, very well versed in this. I think when you're dealing with several different types of markets, communities, different nuances per market, macro effects, all of these things come into play, and you have to be incredibly agile as you go through it. I think the key is always really going back to that creative mindset and really keeping an open mindset of how you're going to attack it. I think resilience is also very key. I'm really a firm believer, and I always say this to my team, that you don't need to just accept a no, or if you feel like that door is closed, there's always a way to open the door. You just have to be persistent. You just have to continue to explore, be curious, ask the right questions, talk to the right people, and you can figure out a way to get through. You can figure out a way to solve that problem. So I think specifically it's that creative mindset, but then also that resilience of just persevering through.
Thank you. And I love that you just mentioned, ask the right questions and ask the right people. One thing that this is definitely the first time I've experienced this, being at Squarespace in particular as an employee, this is by far the most collaborative environment I've ever been in. And I think that people might say, oh, collaboration, that means red tape. But I don't get it. My personal experience here is that it's not a matter of red tape. It's more so if we have the right subject matter experts in the room or knowledgeable of a program or project, then the better it ultimately would be. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Okay, awesome. We're going to get to Becky's question. Thank you so much for sending it. Question to Hannah. How do you ensure that you have ties to your leadership training programs into career progression and talent promotion?
Yeah, I can take a stab at this, but also Becky, and anyone on the call, I love talking to people, so always happy to continue the conversation after this. I can put my email in the chat, and anyone can email me, and we can talk more about it because I think it's a complicated question. But for our programs, we adhere pretty closely, and we use as a guide our leadership capabilities, which were created in partnership with our executive team based on the skills and competencies that they believe leaders need in order to succeed at Squarespace. Specifically, it was a long process to create them. And so we leverage them to build the programs to begin with. And then in terms of these programs in particular, the ones I've mentioned so far, which are those more cohort-based leadership programs, we surface nominations for those programs as part of a talent management process. So our leadership is really involved in thinking through who would benefit most from those programs and who would be appropriate candidates for them in terms of what they need to grow and how we want to continue to support them in their growth and development at Squarespace. I think the word that is like a little bit feels like I could talk about it forever. I won't, because it would bore the rest of the people on this call, but tying it into career progression and talent promotions in particular is always really hard because promotions need to be justified by a business need, right? That we have a lot of wonderful people who do really well, but there may or may not necessarily be a promotion available to that person. And so we try not to tie the success of our programs exclusively to promotions. It's certainly one of the factors that we look at. We also look at internal mobility. We also look at success in role. We look at a lot of different things, because we believe that people can grow in many, many, many different ways, and promotion is like one of those ways. And so I think that we try overall, we build our programs based on leadership competencies and capabilities that are connected to our values, that are connected to our mission as a company, that were created by our executive team. We develop people in that way. We talk about them at the leadership team level, and they're the people that we end up talking about and thinking about when opportunities come up. But I think if you're only measuring programs and only measuring the success of a program based on promotion rates coming out of those programs, depending on the size of your company and the culture at your company, you may be missing out on other ways in which people grow and can help those around them grow. And so we try to look at those as well. Hopefully that was somewhat of an answer to your question, but again, I'm happy to chat more about it offline.
Thank you. And Hannah, you started to talk about our next question, which is about the measurement of success. So Danielle, I would love if you could speak to how do you measure the success and impact of your program for people within Squarespace? So what does that look like? How do you use your community feedback to improve your innovative programs at Squarespace specifically?
Yeah, of course. So I mean, our success and impact is directly tied to the growth that we see within these markets. We are constantly monitoring all of that, but I think the key thing you said there is the community feedback, specifically. So Diamond, let me just make sure I understand your question. Do you mean internally? How do we measure and talking to people in Squarespace, or is it externally as well?
If you feel that the programs that you're running speak specific more so to the external world,
Okay.
great. But I would love to know, do you have any thoughts on how does it affect, maybe the individuals within your team as well, the way that you operate, or the cross collaborating teams that you work with, how does that affect them internally as well?
Yes, for sure. Okay, got it. I thought I was going to go down one tangent, and I realized I need to go down this way. So thank you for clarifying that. I think the community feedback and cross collaborations across the team are vital. I always encourage my team to prioritize putting in 5 or 10 or 15 extra minutes, however long you have, to build on those communications and building on that connectivity across the department and across the team. My team sit over here in London and Amsterdam. Most of the team are based in New York. So that is really, really important for them to continually be connecting with HQ in whatever way possible. And that can be quite challenging when you have a team that's sitting in different time zones and different markets. You're also working with different external agencies on the ground. So I think the communication is super key, and prioritizing that, because it will always benefit you in the long run, no matter what that is. And it may not feel like it is at the time, but I think the communication is super key. And then I'm also going to flex a bit in terms of trying to speak about how we intake community feedback from an external perspective. I really encourage my team to stay consistently close to the customer wherever possible. I know Sarah can probably build off of that as well, but my team are on the ground in these markets and talking to customers all of the time. It can be quite challenging to do that when you have a desk job as well, but they are in market and they prioritize that month in and month out. And it is so fruitful and so effective to stay so close to your customer, because customers are the most insightful feedback that you can get. They are brutally honest, which is fantastic. And they never fail to provide you with that tangible feedback. And I also know across my career, they've always been the moments where when customers are talking to me, I have maybe a light bulb in my head thinking that actually is a really good idea for a campaign. I'm gonna plant that seed and come back to it. So I would say stay close to the customer and your communities as much as you can. And consistency is key there.
Thank
I
you.
hope I answered it, Diamond.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Hannah, any thoughts on this question?
In terms of how we measure the success of our programs?
Yep, for folks internally.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it is not probably wouldn't surprise very many people like sitting in a learning and development function. We measure, we have a lot of, first of all, we love feedback and we try to get feedback from any human being who will give us feedback because we're constantly trying to build and grow these programs. But we look at reaction data, we look at behavior data and learning data. We have a lot of surveys and focus groups and things that we send out to make sure that they're resonating. We do track promotions, we track internal mobility, we track growth, we talk to the managers of people who participated. So we want to make sure that we're still that the return on learning is sort of how we talk about it on the team, because sometimes it's a little bit hard to immediately track return on investment for some of these learning programs that aren't immediately connected to like a business goal, though some of them are. But we try to track return on learning by talking to participants, managers of participants, leaders who have participated maybe as mentors or coaches in programs. And so I think we're just constantly looking at that. And like Danielle was saying, our customers are just internal. And we also our whole team tries to stay really close to our internal customers to understand what's going on for them, as well as our our other teams across the people team. So I think we want to make sure that we're aligned and that we're getting information from and sharing information with our HR business partner team and all the other teams that we partner with, because everybody is bringing a slight different perspective in terms of what they're seeing out in the business beyond our little HR world, and we use that to make sure that we are iterating on and building the most impactful programs we can.
Thank you. Now let's help everyone who is tuning in today, right? Like maybe they're within marketing, maybe they're on the people team, maybe they're customer facing. Generally speaking, and we'll start with you, Hannah, if that's all right. Generally speaking, what is some advice that you would give for someone looking to implement similar programs at their organization that would ensure the success of the implementation and engagement moving forward?
Yeah, so I think, I guess, on the theme of innovation, what I would maybe recommend, because there's a lot of things that you can do to ensure success or to do your best. But I think starting with the why and starting with the goal, and in the case of a leadership development program, starting with the skills and the competencies that you think people really, or that you've researched and figured out people really need, like start there and then figure out the how. And I think a lot of times we know we're supposed to do that, but we still start with the like how or the what, because it's like, we've done something similar in the past, we'll just do this again and we'll tailor it. But I think you can come up with fresher ideas and fresher solutions if what you're starting with is like, what is the problem we want to solve, or what is the goal that we have, or what is the skill that we need to develop, and allow yourself to think creatively at first. Like, you don't have to commit to any of those ideas, but allow yourself to genuinely brainstorm in a big way. Like, what are the best ways to reach that goal? What are ways we may or may not have tried to reach that goal? We don't know if they'll be successful or not. And I think that for me is always where I try to start when we're building something new or new-ish, because I think it helps avoid a trap of, well, we sort of know how we're supposed to do it, and so we'll just keep doing it the same way over and over and over. And so for a lot of our programs, we start first with that why. We start first with those skills, and then we think through like, what is the best way to do this, and maybe we've never tried it and we don't know, but we'll try it. And I think having a constant iterative reflective process throughout all of that, so looking back on a program that you finished, looking at what the successes were, how can we replicate those and maybe even make them bigger successes, looking back at the failures and seeing those failures not as a failing, but as an opportunity to try something new, and it's a success in a way because you tried something new. So I don't know. I would encourage people to try to be creative, even if you're not positive it's going to be successful. Because I think that's where we learn the most as employees and as owners of these programs.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Sarah, how about you? Like, thinking about the Circle program, what are some pieces of advice you would suggest to people on how to ensure successful engagement and implementation?
So I think we often try things we don't know will work, and I think we give ourselves the grace to try something that may or may not work, which has been really helpful to kind of create that culture within the team. And I also kind of echo what Danielle said about doing use a lot of user research. And so we do that in a variety of different ways. We do it with office hours calls where people can sign up and give us feedback or ask questions one-on-one. We do it with, user research, more, kind of broad user research. We have events that people come to and they can talk to us at those events, and all kinds of other things. And I think we get a lot of insights out of that research. Even if we're not formal researchers, we can still learn from some more formal methods. And I think one thing that's really interesting when you're working with a community of people who are kind of doing their own thing and you're just supporting them is to look at how they're hacking something. So how are they hacking your product? How are they hacking, talking to each other? What are they doing that you're not offering that they're naturally just kind of doing as a group of people, and learn from that and then see if you can formalize something out of that. So um, a lot of people were in our community, they were meeting each other in person. So if they lived in the same city, they were finding each other and meeting each other. And so we have in the past, we've supported and done community meetups, or, are they getting together and talking about a certain topic? So we may learn from that and then facilitate that even more formally. So I think I've learned a ton by taking kind of those concepts and scaling those concepts, because clearly that's the need of the group of people that you're supporting. So that's one of my favorite kind of hacks, I guess. And like Danielle said, talking to your users is so important, and you get so many ideas from that for me personally, I'm like, this feels like cheating. You guys are just giving me all the ideas for my job, and we're just kind of like putting a little money under it and people resources under it, and like helping do the things that the community is looking to do. So that's my favorite, I think, tool in the toolbox.
Thank you. Danielle, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I was nodding furiously when both Hannah and Sarah are speaking. I think they're so insightful. And I think the last part of it is really starting with team. I think it always comes back to the team that you're building. So if you're starting a new project, what is that team going to look like? Is it diverse enough? Is it dynamic enough? Is it people who can play off of each other, who can, cross collab with each other? And is it the best group of people for this specific project? I think that can make or break a project instantly. And so I think it really coming back to who you want on that. And then also on the flip side of that, really leaning into what your team has individually have told you what they want to be a part of. So if you have a team who's interested in specific things, pulling them in for those things will be beneficial for the company, but also for themselves in their own development. So I think there's a lot of things you can think of when it comes to team and tactically building a project from the get-go for that.
Thank you. Hannah, if you could take a stab at this next question. How do these programs facilitate collaboration, networking opportunities for women, both within Squarespace and the broader professional community?
Yeah, I can at least speak to like the first half of that, which is within Squarespace. We have a number of programs that, I mean, we try, it's important to me to have women represented across all of our programs, and to have all of our programs have a diversity lens to them, in the sense that we want to be making sure these are um, cohorts and programs that have representation across a variety of identities. And but in terms of women in particular, we've run a number of specific programs for women, one of which was a mentorship program that we ran just in partnership with our Women Plus ERG. Was really, really awesome a few months back, where we had employees in our Women Plus ERG volunteer both to be mentors and mentees. And it did a really nice job of fostering not just skill building, but also community building and networking. And I think one of the potentially unique, or maybe not unique, but unusual components to that program was we didn't it wasn't a program in which the most senior women in the group, mentored the more junior women in the group. It was really about like anybody could mentor anybody. I could be mentored by someone who technically in role is junior to me, but has skills that I don't have, or is in an area that I'm interested in learning about. And we really tried to hit that home when we were building this program and communicate that over and over. And I think it did a nice job of not just building connections, but like helping everyone in the program feel empowered and understand that they have something that is unique, and they have skills that they can teach to others, and that it's not really about level or years of work experience or anything like that. We all have skills that we can teach others regardless of that. And so I think that was a cool feature of that program.
Thank you. And Sarah, how about the Circle program? How does the Circle program foster or encourage collaboration amongst women?
Yeah, so I'm not sure that we have any parts of the program that are specific to women, but I have seen, at our events and our Circle Day conference, so many women collaborating with each other. I met a group of women who met as individual web designers, and then they started working together and realized we should start a business together. So I think we offer a lot of opportunity for people who wouldn't normally meet each other to connect. And especially in an industry when if you're a solo entrepreneur, you may be working by yourself at your computer all day long. So giving people quote coworkers that they can, bounce ideas off of or learn from each other, I think is really valuable. So we really prioritize that within our community because it's something that we've heard over and over that people want. And then the other thing I think is really interesting is there are people, Circle members, who are building websites for business owners who may not be comfortable going online themselves. So even though Squarespace is a super easy tool to use as a customer, there are people who just won't be building their own website. Maybe they don't know they can do it, or they don't know how, or they don't feel confident. And so Circle members, help get those people online and get their businesses online. And I think that can be really empowering. And I love hearing about examples of, like the Circle member who built a site for a restaurant that's been there for 30 years. And they just really needed a website, and they needed it kind of up leveled, and they needed new design and a better functioning site. And so they helped get that person, that business online. So I think there's a lot of ways that our community is empowering each other. And we're just kind of there to help make the connections happen and facilitate that.
Thank you. Now, this next question is the one that I've been waiting to ask you all. I know that each of you are women and also women managers. You manage a team, each of you, in your respective roles. You have other women who are within your team. You're collaborating with daily. One thing I love about Squarespace is there are so many different women leaders within the organization. And to Hannah's point, even people who are individual contributors are women leaders in their own right within their roles, with being subject matter experts and trusted within the organization. If each of you could just touch on how do you nurture the women that you work with at Squarespace? Hannah, if you could start.
Sure. Yeah, I think we have just awesome women at Squarespace, and I feel very lucky to work with them in multiple capacities. I think in terms of how I like approach being a manager to women, I think I'm influenced probably by a lot of like bad experiences I had earlier in my career, or not necessarily even bad experiences, but like bad mindsets that I brought early in my career. I think a lot of my um, early managers, leaders, mentors, even if I go back to school, like professors, teachers were men. And I definitely felt like I had to be like them in order to be a leader. Like I personally didn't have a ton of examples of women in leadership roles as I was coming up. And whether this is because I'm a woman or not, I felt like I wasn't like them for a variety of reasons, and I think I felt bad about myself as a result. And so I certainly try my best. I would be curious to know if I'm succeeding based on the women on my team. But I certainly try my best to like let people know that there are so many different ways to be a leader, and there are so many different ways to be impactful and effective. And we often, I think this is changing now, but I think for me, like I definitely grew up with a very sort of male version of what it meant to be a leader as a thing that you aspire to, and it mess me up a little bit. So I try to make sure that my team doesn't feel that way. I'm also sort of on the lookout for, like, I think, gender bias like creeps into the workplace still, like very, infrequently, but I don't think we've gotten rid of it fully, unfortunately. And so I think, I've in my career, like I went through a period where everybody was telling me I needed to be more assertive, which probably a bunch of people can relate to. And I felt like I was being perfectly assertive, but I was doing it like in this sort of smiley way, which is just my personality. And then I sort of pushed and then was told I was being not like too pushy. So I think it's just, like I had to be more assertive and then not assertive enough, or assertive in the right way. And so I try to like make sure that when I'm giving feedback or when I'm listening to feedback from others about people on my team, that I have that lens to it, to, I don't know, to make sure that people are actually being measured by the work that they're doing, and that those like sort of biases that we may have grown up with don't creep in. So it was slightly long-winded. I could talk about this forever. So apologies for going on long.
No, thank you. Sarah, how about you? How is the experience of, how do you nurture women at Squarespace?
Yeah, so my team right now is made up of my team that I manage is we're only women, so it's easy question I guess for me to answer right now. And I have also learned from previous experiences. I don't know if I'm doing it 100% correct right now, but I've had amazing women managers in the past who I learned a lot from. One of which was my age, but she had a ton of experience at the company, and she taught me a lot. And I've also had not so great experiences in the past. I was once told I was too nice to get a certain job within the organization, and not at Squarespace, but it was something that I learned a lot from my reaction, and also just the company I was at. And I also have, I've gone on just kind of an aspect of being a woman in the workplace. I've gone on 2 maternity leaves, at one at Squarespace and one at my previous company, and just kind of seeing how a company supports people through parental leaves was a good learning to me. And then I was able to be a manager supporting somebody coming back from a parental leave this year, and remembering my own experience, and remembering just kind of like the state of mind that a person is in when they come back from parental leave, and kind of what kind of support that person needs, was a good learning and reminder for myself. And I think there's a lot that can be done there, and there's a lot of grace to give somebody when that they're not sleeping at night, yet they're returning to work and being a functioning employee. So yeah, that's something that I have been really conscious of in the last few months, and will be in the future as well.
Thank you. Danielle, how about you? How do you nurture the women within your team, within Squarespace?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about, again, taking the time to get to know every individual person on your team up front. And not only what is driving them at that given time, but what are their aspirations? Where do they want to go? And really figuring out who these people are, and what they want out of life, out of their career, et cetera. I think once you take the time to get to understand every individual person and women, then you can then cater and support them along their journeys, whatever that may be. I think, a lot of women are juggling a hell of a lot of things. We're also incredibly dynamic creatures. So I think treating it as a unique opportunity for each person on your team will really help you support them in the way that they need to be supported. I think the most beautiful thing is that we all are different, and we can all contribute in different ways. So I think it's treating it uniquely is really key.
Thank you. So I have a quick question. This is a lightning round question. 60 seconds each. Sarah, if you could start, what advice would you give your younger self?
Yeah. So my my career has been a string of kind of seemingly random roles in different industries, going from design in college to retail, corporate retail, to running an arts organization, to tech, and then another job in tech. And so it seemed like as I was taking on jobs, they were random and I didn't fully understand the connection between them. And now looking back, I understand there is a connection, and a lot of that is community building. But I didn't have that language at the time, and I certainly didn't go to school for running communities. So I don't think that is I don't think that is something you can go to school for. Maybe it is, and I don't know. But um, I think taking on opportunities, even if you don't know why or where they will lead, anything that's interesting to you, going down that path, and then you can figure out what is the common thread later on.
Yeah, thank you. Hannah, what advice would you give your younger self?
I think I would give my younger self advice to um, I think not to not look at other people and assume that the ways in which they are different from you are reflections of something bad about you. Like I think it was tempting for me to look at people who had skills that didn't come as naturally to me and be like, oh, those are the skills that I need, and I'm somehow failing because I don't have those skills. And simultaneously to undervalue the skills that I did have because they were like more natural to me. And I was like, oh, that's just my personality. That's not a skill. And so I think I would probably tell my younger self to be kinder to myself, but also to recognize what you're good at and not like dismiss it because you're already good at it, and only focus on the things that you don't feel like you're good at. Not that you shouldn't still change and grow. Obviously, we should be doing that our whole lives. Um, but I think to see the skills that you had a little bit earlier.
Thank you. Danielle?
Yeah, I have a bit of a two-parter. I think one, it will never ever work out how you think it's going to. And that means being open to those opportunities and going with the flow, and just being open to any experiences, like Sarah was saying, dive in there. And I think secondly, as you're going through those experiences, knowing that the hardest moments for all of these experiences that you're going through are going to be used as building blocks for your next role, for your next project, etc. They may seem so hard, but it is worth it in the long run, and that perseverance is certainly worth it.
Yeah, thank you. So, Fairygodboss has a tradition of asking panelists the following question: what have you observed that women do not feel comfortable enough bragging or taking ownership of, all the amazing things that they've achieved? Share with us an accomplishment, personal or professional, that you're most proud of. Danielle, can you go?
Yeah, sure. I think I am proud of the career that I have built across the pond. I started based in New York. I had no network, no community, nothing over here in London, and my majority of career has been in London. So I'm really proud of myself when I look back in the past 14 years, what I've been able to build all by myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah?
Um, yeah, I had a hard time thinking of an answer to this. Typical, woman not being able to answer or brag. But I did think about it, and I think I was able to co-write a book earlier in my career, which was a result of being super meticulous in a job that I was in, running an arts organization, keeping track of all of my favorite artists, and that led to us writing a book, which was very cool. It's still sold today. It's called Sketchbook Project World Tour. And then I have two kids, and I will say that having little kids is the most I've ever learned in my life, and I'm still learning every day. And working and having kids is no joke. So super proud of that as well.
Absolutely commendable. Hannah, what are you most proud of?
I also had trouble with this question. It's something I can take away and think about, but sort of like not exactly similar to Danielle, but your comment made me think. I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish personally, professionally. I have a chronic illness. I talk about it, very open about it. If anyone wants to talk about chronic illness stuff, anytime. But I have a pretty like serious chronic illness. I've had to have, I don't know, 16 surgeries over the last few years. I've been out a fair amount, and I've still been able to like get a lot of stuff done, and build a career that I really am proud of and happy about. And so I when I look back, I'm proud of sort of what I have had going on outside of work and have still been able um, to do work, and frankly, like, to bring learnings from that experience into how I lead and how I manage, and how I think about partnerships. So that's one thing I'll say.
Wow, thank you so much. And thank you to each of you, all of the folks who have joined us today and listened in on this discussion. So thank you so much, Danielle, Hannah, Sarah, for joining us today and for sharing such fantastic advice, sharing a bit more about you professionally and personally. Thanks for all who have tuned into the discussion. As a reminder, we'll be sending out a recording of today's event, along with resources to learn more about opportunities at Squarespace. And in the meantime, be sure to check out Squarespace's profile and our open jobs on Fairygodboss. And we'd love to hear your feedback to help us improve for future events. So please head to the Typeform tab on the right side of your screen and share your thoughts in a 1-minute survey, if you don't mind. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much.